Welcome to the Two Fat Guys in an Album podcast, your weekly dive into iconic albums and our search for modern classics. In this episode, we explore the 1977 Bat Outta Hell album by the one and only Meat Loaf. This music combines the songwriting brilliance of Jim Steinman with the theatrical stylings of Meatloaf. Bat Outta Hell is a 14 times certified platinum album selling over 43 million copies. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more album reviews, in-depth discussion, and music analysis by two fat guys who love music, no matter the genre. I am Mike Blackburn. I'll be your host and narrator. And with me, as always, is my good friend, the maestro of music, the siren of sound, the doctor of the diminished chord, Brek Hufnus. Good day, maestro.
Good day.
Welcome. So,
thank you.
Do you have thoughts on our previous album? Last week we talked about moving pictures.
I have thoughts, but I think we have to touch on something. I think we need a little French lesson before we get started today, just to prepare us for the show. First of all, welcome to our audience. We're on a lot of things now, like YouTube and Spotify. We're practically the kings of social media at this point.
Okay.
So be sure to comment out there. We read them, and we try to reply to as many as we can, and love to have the community interaction. Engagement, yeah. Sure. So one of our listeners, because genre comes up quite a bit in our discussions.
It is my favorite musical topic.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but it's a French etymology. Okay. Sure. So one of our listeners pointed out that there's a hilarious YouTube video of Alex Trebek saying genre on Jeopardy, and there's like a whole category of genre questions, but he doesn't say genre. He says genre or something like that. I'm doing my best. Genre.
The French?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking if I slip into genre, which I might if I'm feeling extra pretentious or getting annoyed by you, I might just letting everybody know.
Is that your safe word then?
Genre.
You go genre.
Yeah. But check out the YouTube video. It's quite entertaining, and thanks for pointing that out to us. And then another French word that may come up today is entendre. And entendre means to hear or understand. But a double entendre is a phrase or word with two possible interpretations, one literal and the other more subtle or suggestive. I was driving around the other day, and I heard John Prine actually came on, and they were playing Ain't Hurting Nobody, which is a great song from 1995. Ain't hurting nobody, I ain't hurting no one. It's funny, because I've heard that song like 1,000 times. But it hit me a little differently, and you never know where your headspace is at any given moment, but we were sort of in this double entendre. At least my brain was kind of in that space. And he's got a great double entendre in that song. There's roosters laying chickens and chickens laying eggs. And I never got it before until yesterday.
Yeah.
Genius.
That's not really a double entendre. That's
sure, it
pretty
is.
Blatant.
No,
you're a single entendre.
It's not. It's actually double because you're using the word laying in two different ways. It's a double entendre. This is why we're having the lesson.
Please comment to Fat Guy 2 with your comments about these. How wrong he is on here. But go on.
That's exactly what a double. I just read the
two different meanings of the same word. It's not
used differently. One literal and the other more subtle or suggestive.
I don't think.
At any rate, it's a great lyric. You may debate the grammar.
It is a great lyric.
Of it.
I don't think that's a double entendre. I think it's pretty much a single entendre. Just the meaning of those words.
Okay, Tom Sawyer or moving pictures.
Yeah.
I decided Tom Sawyer shall be my walk-up song. I don't. Seven Nation Army can.
Which part of it?
The beginning, just the beginning instrumental.
You don't want the whole the middle drum.
Well, it depends how slow or fast I'm walking. We may
Waddling.
have to, yeah.
Waddling.
So we may have to, whatever. We'll time it out and choose the best part. But Tom Sawyer is my new favorite walk-up song.
We will be the only ones with waddle-up songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we're like doing the introductions of some category at the Grammy, like best music podcast.
Boy, possibly maybe next year.
Yeah.
I'm sure by then we'll be doing that. So here, for moving pictures, you talked about some of your audiophileness in previous episodes and all that, and we've had this lo-fi, hi-fi discussion.
Which I think you're wrong on, by the way, but go on.
What am I wrong about? Wait, what?
So you, when I was using the term lo-fi,
yes,
you corrected me and shut that conversation down. So
no, I did.
Guided by Voices, I believe, was the band.
Oh,
I was talking about, and I was talking about they're a lo-fi band,
right?
And you went into a long, explanation on what lo-fi really is.
Lo-fi
musically,
yeah,
and I would say that lo-fi has become a genre unto itself, or genre.
I know you would.
And I don't think I'm wrong. I think it's a legitimate category, and Guided by Voices probably would be the standard bearer for that type of music, and
well, I will have to
Mountain Goats and else,
I will have to review that before I get in this.
I think Chauncey's getting another $1 here.
No, he's not. He's not.
But that's a fair, it's a fair conversation, because you were right in the fact that you're talking about it as a style of recording or something, a simplistic style of recording where you have guys recording songs back in the day on like boom boxes and stuff.
Right, which created a lo-fi sound.
Correct. But it also has become, over time, a style of music.
By people who are anal about genre.
No, I don't. Not at all.
Because whatever. I'm willing to
do your
research it and come back to it. But to clarify my point, the original, what was the name of the band?
Guided by Voices.
Guided by Voices. Originally, their seminal album was basically recorded in a garage on a boombox.
Yeah.
Creating a lo-fi sound.
Yeah.
Okay. The song that you specifically spoke of,
from their new
was
album,
more prepared in a recording studio,
and
was mixed professionally and had a more polished sound.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
So there's no way that that's lo-fi music, other than saying that they were a lo-fi band that made this type of sound, any more than the Mountain Goats work today is lo-fi. The Mountain Goats work today is not lo-fi in any way.
Before you bury yourself deeper, why don't we table this conversation and have you go back and do a little research, because I think they're trying to capture that garage band sort of feel, and there's
you know how you
do
bands. That record in a garage with a boom box. So okay. Look, can I just, because this is going to come, no, look, if you can't listen to a song and by the sound of that music, give it a name, then the genre is stupid and meaningless, because it's not describing what you're listening to. If you listen, oh, good Lord. When you listen to this song, if you gave this song to any normal human being, and ask them to listen to it, and they would say, oh, that's a really awesome rock song. Even somebody moderately knowledgeable in music would say, oh, yeah, that sounds like rock. Not a single person walking the planet, even you, would listen to that song and immediately identify it as lo-fi, because it doesn't sound lo-fi. Period.
So again, you're using it in the terms
in an intelligent musical
right, right.
context.
And I'm talking about a group of bands that have this like lo-fi movement.
Meaningless. Can we go to speaking of hi-fi, lo-fi?
Yep.
Usually you don't get me wound up certainly in the show.
Right.
Like I feel like I need like one of those plastic like bats to just hit me over the head with when you start going down this road.
And you're going to be so disappointed when you start really digging into this and you find out that I'm right. Go on.
There is nothing that will.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to.
Go on.
Moving on.
Yes.
So, one of the fun things about the album Moving Pictures is it was remastered in 2022 for iTunes. And now that we're on Apple,
yes,
I feel comfortable talking about this. But
so what does remastered really mean?
Well, you have whenever you're okay, mastering music in the first place would be like making a finished product. So you have all the tapes or recordings or whatever, and then mastering is the final step where you're making it for production. This is what this will sound like. And and it's really hard to do because you can listen to an album or song on headphones. You can listen to it in your car. You can listen to it on a stereo system or on computer speakers. And all of those things sound different. So when you're mastering, you're sort of trying to create a sound that works for all of those things.
So we talked about when we went through like the Blonde on Blonde album by Dylan.
Yes.
We talked about cutting tape.
Right. Yeah, you would cut and splice actual physical tape.
So are they taking, when you create a song today,
yes,
are they taking a bunch of different pieces from different takes, if you would?
You could.
And putting them together, or are they using...
That's a possibility. I mean, the thing is...
So is mastering... those bits put together and then the sounds adjusted levels?
So the edit is what you're describing.
Right.
They're choosing what to include in the actual song. Which guitar solo will we use? Which vocal was the best? That sort of a thing. So they're compiling all that into a product that will then be mastered as the final output, which we will hear. But again, trying to do that is difficult because everybody doesn't hear it the same way and on the same device and the same quality of device. So they remastered it specifically for iTunes. Okay, and iTunes is working off of this fairly new Dolby codec called Atmos. Dolby Atmos is a very high quality compression algorithm codec. And they did it specifically to be listened to on AirPods Pro, which reads this codec.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, which knows how to read this. And by now you can get stereo systems with Dolby Atmos on it and various things. And I kind of wasn't sure, like, is this just a marketing ploy? Yeah. So I listened to it. Well, first of all, when it came out, and I listened to headphones. It was amazing. So if you happen to be a person who owns a pair of AirPods Pro and you like the album Moving Pictures, look for this particular remastering. So I don't know if I fully answered your question then. So they've remastered it to sound good with this.
So they're
codec.
Adjusting the sounds or levels.
Yes.
To specifically for
that listening device and that specific codec.
Got it.
And it sounds amazing. It just gave me chills when I listened to it. And I listened to it. I have a halfway good set of Bose headphones that do not read this Dolby Atmos. I thought, well, let's listen to it, and it wasn't the same. Like, it sounded great on the AirPods Pro. So yeah.
So that's very cool. Interestingly enough, or I guess my next question, if you're talking about, somebody, in studio, it's horrible, studio and production, um, developing, mastering a song, if you will.
Yes.
Does the band then have to, like, before they go out on tour, have to learn that version?
Well, no, mastering's just setting levels and stuff. It's just creating the sound. They've already created that version. They can decide when they go on tour how true they intend to be to that version. Different bands are different. Some are very literal. Some perform exactly the same every night. And so if you see it, well, I don't know if this is entirely true, but if you see a show like Taylor Swift, for example, that's super highly choreographed, that kind of has to be the same every night.
Right.
Almost like what you were saying about Geddy Lee in the previous show, having to just perform it the same way every night because it's so exact and it's so choreographed that if you knock something out,
everybody's
kind of off
yeah.
whack. Now, like Taylor Swift, I mean, like everybody makes mistakes. Everybody. So you can make a mistake and be fine with it. But if your intention is to perform something a certain way, it kind of has to be that exact way. But lots of other bands do things differently all the time.
But you can stay in the pattern of the song and add color, if you will,
right,
to it.
Yeah. No, they definitely have to rehearse how they're going to perform it on stage. And it oftentimes is not the same as the studio recording.
Sure.
And oftentimes, and that's kind of what's great about live music, is sometimes when you go see a live show, that's the only performance of that's in existence. Unless they've recorded it, no one else will hear that exact music ever again, probably.
Well, I love live music, and, we've seen hundreds of concerts at this point. And as I've gotten older and more of a curmudgeon, I don't know. Back in the day, I was the same way. We went to a lot of small venues, and I like small venues where you get kind of closer and
definitely
you can see the artistry of them on the instrumentation, but you can also kind of see the process they're going through to perform. I love that, and I love the fact that it seems like a different version of the song you love that they're doing on stage.
Yeah.
And I'm totally good with that, And
right.
I like when they strip down songs or add two songs or...
Yeah, I mean, I've already heard the album version. I know what that version sounds like. I don't necessarily want to hear it exactly the way it is on the album, so I guess I could go either way with it. Sometimes you...
Okay, let me do it this way. Like some of the bands we would see, or like the Mountain Goats, our beloved Mountain Goats. He comes out sometimes and it's just him and a guitar.
Right.
When there's more instrumentation or is more produced on the album maybe, and he's just doing it standing on stage with this, and it's amazing.
Yes.
It's different, but it's amazing, and
I totally agree.
Love that. So, big live music fan. I have some, I guess, to set up kind of future conversations.
I have one more. I have one more moving pictures nugget.
Okay.
Last one.
All right. Well.
The cover art is a triple-entendre.
Oh boy.
It is. So the album cover of Rush's Moving Pictures shows movers carrying pictures. So the album title is Moving Pictures. There are albums carrying movers carrying pictures that looks like into a museum, perhaps.
Yep.
There are people on the side looking at the pictures, and they are weeping because they are moved by the pictures. And if you look at the back of the album, I see you smirking. Wipe that smirk off your face, mister.
Triple-Entendre is like the...
And on the back of the album, there's actually a film crew creating a moving picture of the people being moved by the moving pictures. It is a triple-entendre.
That is not a triple-entendre.
Well, explain it to Rush.
That is just something with multiple meanings. I wouldn't say it's a triple entendre.
I read the definition to you?
So entendre is more of something that's like implied or mysterious. Those are all just blatant. Those are a bunch of single entendres put together.
One literal and the other more subtle or
No,
suggestive.
they're not subtle. Somebody weeping is not being moved. Is not. No.
Okay, well, you tell Rush that their cover art is not actually a triple entendre.
Be happy to. So set, if I may.
You may.
We're moving on.
I am. Yes, I've exhausted moving pictures.
So we have talked quite a bit here about genre and even how Alex Trebek would pronounce it.
Yes.
Right. So I think it's important as we kind of continue to move forward, especially talking about, what the album we have this week, which is Meat Loaf. We're not talking about it yet. You like jumping the gun a little. Is kind of setting it up where genre sort of goes. And what I find most interesting about it is the evolution of music, how artists continues to change and evolve and create new versions or new genres.
Okay.
So, like, you don't have to jump me on this right away, but I would say that from punk, evolved into post-punk. So we've looked at punk and we've talked about punk and we've talked even about post-punk, right? And then post-punk, while there are still post-punk bands today, there's offshoots that came off of those that I would say are like new wave, kind of developed out of that family. And and then another leg of that, or another branch of that, would be like goth, right?
I don't disagree with you yet.
So what I thought might be, or what I guess my way of thinking about all this is, and you see it kind of drawn as like the family tree approach.
Sure,
right?
yeah. Makes
but
sense.
I like to think of it more being the science guy, having professionally being in the science world.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think about this more as like in biology terms. If you remember back to high school biology, where I was in honors, I'm assuming you were in remedial or something.
You are a liar.
So if you remember back to high school biology, if you were awake in those classes, you have like.
Is this how you know so much about entendres as well? Like you were in the honors English class and I wasn't? Is that what we're going?
Well, I was
with
in
right
the
now?
Latin C club, and I think this is where all this stuff really kind of comes from.
Okay, go ahead.
Is
with your science talk.
When we do biology, we talk about kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, right? So I would say that we can start, or at least if you want to know how I think about this, I think about it kind of in that class, order, family, genus, species. So leaving the kingdom as music, kind of way up there.
Thank you for that.
All right. So in the case of what I'm talking about, Chauncey's having a good time with this one.
Keep going.
When I'm thinking about this, so like the class would then be like mammal is the class, rock is the class.
Yeah, okay, just keep. I'll stop you when I just keep going.
So then the order is punk.
Okay.
The family would be like post-punk.
Like 1% of the population is understanding this.
No, it flows. So when I talk about things, I'm going to just say it's punk, post-punk.
Because family tree is too complicated.
Well, it just gives you kind of a branch. No,
go on. No,
like
I want to
where all
understand
this
the work.
comes from.
This is fascinating to finally see the inner workings. keep going.
So like post-punk would be Family then, and then new wave or goth would be the Genus, and then the species would be this particular band. So let's say Susie and the Banshees. You know, you're now going.
See, okay. I mean, this is where you have a great. If I had you, and then you had me, and then you lost me. Did you want to complete your thought before I jump?
No. So I'd just say if you're talking about like, so I would say like, you know, Susie and the Banshees, Spellbound, is probably the first like goth song, and that is from the family of rock, punk, post-punk, goth.
Okay.
Susie and the Banshees. That's how we get to Spellbound.
Okay. Well, there's there's a couple things here.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start with Bauhaus's Bela Lugosi is Dead in 1979 as being the beginning of goth.
So they are. You know, they have the pieces. We're definitely kind of the precursor to it. They're the influence, but it's like saying that is like saying Van Morrison is yacht rock. That's jumping way.
Yeah,
That's taking a foundational thing and throwing it way ahead.
So I actually disagree with that statement. So when
Are you saying Van Morrison is genre?
When I think of genre, as I alluded to earlier with the other nonsense thing you were talking about, when you listen to music, for me, the genre should be identified by the sound you're hearing, and primarily. Then there's certainly other things, you know, there's subcultures and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to throw all that out the window. But I think if you listen to a song and you listen to another song and you want to compare those two songs, you can say, oh, those sound like whatever this genre is. Both of those songs sound like whatever. Okay? So when I listen to Bela Lugosi's Dead, that sounds like goth to me. Sure. I listen to it, I'm like, that's goth.
Moondance sounds like yacht rock.
Okay, you can... I think you've... It doesn't. I mean, who cares? Let me go. Like it doesn't matter. If you consider yacht rock a genre, fine. If you want to drive around and listen to Moondance on your yacht, I won't be offended. I don't care. But so my point being, that sounds like goth, and beyond that, it influenced other people in that direction, okay? When I listen to Susie and the Banshees, specifically the song, that doesn't even sound like goth to me. So just because she put on black eye makeup doesn't make it goth. Susie herself doesn't like goth. She doesn't claim the goth title. She doesn't... identify as goth. She prefers punk, psychedelic, or industrial. So even though she's put into, and I'm not saying she gets a vote,
right?
But I kind of am, because this goes back to what I'm saying, where artists, and this is where I really departed from everything that you said, because then you said Susie and the Banshees is goth, okay? And from an artist point of view, most of them really don't want to be put in a box. Bauhaus describes their own music as dark glam or art rock. They don't describe themselves as goth. The Cure, which is, they don't consider them a goth band. They don't accept that title. I
don't think they have to accept the title. I mean, I don't think it's up to them.
Well,
I think it's the
right, and
some of these things come with history. Right?
I agree with that.
I don't think goth existed when Susie and the Banshees put out Spellbound, and that's where her.
And that's the next point I was going to make, because I was listening to these artists in real time. I was with there. Yeah, and so when I heard this music, it was in my mind new wave. Mm-hmm. Like I thought of this as new wave music.
I don't even think new wave was the title back then either. I don't know when the new wave title came on, but I bet you when we were listening to it, it wasn't called new wave.
It might have been called alternative rock.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I put all this stuff. I really didn't like goth is a but I guess my point being and so if you even think of say Beyonce, okay, at the I don't know if you saw her halftime show on Christmas.
No.
So Beyonce, who won a country Grammy this year, performed at the halftime show on Christmas Day, and she did a whole country thing. She rode in on a horse, a bunch of it was totally 100 like wearing chaps, like all 100% like in on country, okay, and.
So like urban country or
well,
what
kind of.
genre
Well, I realized that you must put a different title on it. But yes, I mean to be fair, it doesn't sound like Nashville country.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right,
it does sound like. I mean, urban country's probably a fair thing to say, but I think she just wants to make music, and so when you say even Susie and the Banshee, they made lots of different kinds of songs. So I don't think it's fair. I think you can put a song in a category. But to finish my Beyonce thing, she grew up in Houston. Mm-hmm. She has as much claim to country music as anybody else.
No, I'm not.
But the difficulties that artists have because radio stations want them to be this, their fans want them to be this, and they're constrained by these genres that are arbitrary. It's like super arbitrary because like you just made up a word right now. It's just arbitrary. And you're trying to make something arbitrary concrete. And I think maybe that's the biggest issue. I mean, I have a whole thing about like post-punk. I go on literally forever on this.
We don't have the time.
No, I realize that.
We'll have to have a whole show on, just a genre argument show. But we'll have to pick up that thought next time. But we're moving into side one of this. No, we're moving into.
I need calming fluids or something. I need.
We're moving into
put some
side
incense
one.
on, perhaps.
Let's drop the needle here.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rock. In the red corner, an album that needs no introduction. Coming in at 343 on the Rolling Stone 500 Greatest Albums of All Time, with over 40 million copies sold. This 1977 Wagnerian rock masterpiece is one of the top 10 selling albums of all time. Jim Steinman wrote the lyrics, and Meatloaf sang the songs. This is Backed Out of Hell. And in the blue corner, two fat guys.
This is Two Fat Guys and an album.
So it's hard to talk about Bat Out of Hell without talking about, or at least deciding, where this discussion sort of is going to go. Are we talking about just Meatloaf? Or are we talking about Jim Steinman? Is this a Meatloaf conversation? Is this a Steinman conversation? Is this a Bat Out of Hell conversation?
Well, I mean, I think all of the above. I think we can squeeze that into whatever time frame we have. I will say, like, the Meatloaf Jim Steinman relationship probably, like Bernie Taupin and Elton John, like they belong together, and neither probably was as successful without the other. And when when they're together, it's next level stuff. So I think both are.
But it was a
relevant.
fairly contentious relationship after this album was released.
I think there was contentious before the album was released. I think they were always a bit contentious. I think they, Jim Steinman likes himself a lot.
Yes.
And, like, even on this album, he proposed that the album title would be Jim Steinman Presents Bat Out of Hell or something like that. Or Jim Steinman Presents Meatloaf Bat Out of the Hell. like he wanted top billing in some regard.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, how many other songwriters have their name on the album cover?
Well, he didn't.
He did.
He did?
Yeah, no, it's
well, he
still-
didn't have top billing.
He did
yeah.
not get top billing, but his name is in fact on the. I believe it's just "Bad Out of Hell," Meatloaf, "Bad Out of Hell," songs by Jim Steinman, but on the front cover.
Yeah.
So it does not happen often, and I think, that's probably where some. So even before the album was released, there was this. I don't know if power struggle might not be the right word, but he certainly felt
Thought
he
a lot
was
of it.
very
Yeah,
important.
yes. So they met in 1973.
Okay.
There was a Jim Steinman wrote like plays and musicals,
Mm-hmm.
and Meatloaf had who was born and raised in Texas, football player, moved to L.A., and he was in Hair.
Right.
Later,
Like a legitimate stage actor.
yeah,
Right.
correct. And so he was auditioning for a Jim Steinman musical, and Jim Steinman heard him in the audition and was absolutely blown away by the power and the fact that Meatloaf seemed to have gotten his, understood him and understood the songs and brought them to life.
It was his "You Complete Me" moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. And the relationship was born. They started writing songs together. They went. They were actually on a tour together in National Lampoon's.
Mm-hmm.
Meatloaf was the understudy to Jim Belushi in that traveling tour, and Steinman was hired as a piano player for that tour.
Mm-hmm.
And while they were on tour together, they started writing songs, or Steinman started writing songs, and developed into some of these.
So they
these
were
songs.
actually, comedic. They had a comedic background in that regard. Like if you're on the National Lampoon Road
absolutely.
Tour,
Yep.
you have a comedic
and you
bend.
and
to
you
it.
can see a lot of these songs have that comedic ties.
Yes.
It's twists on cliches, like 2 out of 3 isn't bad.
double entendres is the word you're looking for.
Like
The
cliches.
album is full of double entendres.
All right.
Hence the French lesson that you didn't pay attention to at the beginning. Clearly.
Well, I think you need to go back and
Oh my God.
look at the terms again. But I heard Jim Steinman described as the king of karaoke.
Okay, I've
And-
heard that before.
And I think that's probably pretty good.
Because everybody wants to do
Sure.
his songs for
so
karaoke.
he can make a rock star out of anyone, right? He's got these
not
power
out of,
ballads.
not out of himself.
Right. Well, yeah. He did try an album, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it turns out he needs Meatloaf.
Yeah. So and Steinman was like he wrote musicals.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how successful any of them were. He got into this kind of thing where he was writing vampire musicals.
Goth, probably. Goth musicals. Is,
Well, I don't want to put a category on them
Right.
or anything. Bend you all out of shape like the first part of this show.
I think if you're writing vampire musicals, it's safe to call them goth musicals.
Yeah, probably. But each of these songs really is like a mini musical. And so many of his other works are like mini musicals. It's kind of cool.
Right. Well, are you... So I figured you would like this. The genre that I came across is Wagnerian rock. Or opera. I didn't make this up. I read it. And now you turn your... I cannot believe you are turning your nose up at a genre, first of all.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah.
So I do think it's operatic rock.
Yes.
I think that's a great way to describe this.
Yes.
But I think this album...
Well, the songs are stories.
Right, but there's the operatic rock that this kind of came from, right? It's in that
Genus.
genus. Sure, perfect. Look at you.
Okay.
like you're a science guy. But but Steinman's sort of his own category. Steinman's his own genre.
Well, I think
You see Jim Steinman songs.
yeah, for sure.
You
Yeah,
know,
I agree. But I mean, I think they're both in their own category. Like I think Meatloaf, like like the work that Meatloaf did without Jim Steinman is not the same. And I really do look at it as a Bernie Taupin and Elton John thing. Like their best work is together, and they define each other. They complete each other, so to speak. But yeah, he's definitely unique. They're both very, very unique.
So I don't think they were best together. I think this album is amazing, and
I like the second album quite a bit. Also, Back into Hell.
Bad 2.
Yes.
Yeah. Bad 3 is not that good.
No.
But I think Steinman probably had bigger hits, individual hits, outside of Meatloaf.
Well, so out of Back into Hell, I Do Anything for Love was a U.S. and U.K. #1. So he had big hits there. Yeah. But I know where you're going with this also.
But like Total Eclipse of the Heart is...
Right, also a #1.
Yeah, I mean...
And Making Love Out of Nothing at All was a #2 only because Total Eclipse of the Heart was #1. So he actually owned 1 and 2 in 1983 with both of those songs.
And not Meatloaf.
Right, but Meatloaf also had a #1 with him as well.
Yeah. But
he found other singers who were able to perform his songs.
And those songs are all like these power ballads.
Yes.
Full karaoke songs. Or twists on cliches, sure. You can ride the Double-Entendre train if you want to. But power ballads I think are pretty cool. So I would just say that he did Meatloaf clearly needed Jim Steinman. I don't think
Meatloaf
Steinman
was in Rocky
needed.
Horror Picture Show, and he was on Broadway with Rocky Horror. And I didn't look completely into his post Bat Out of Hell career, but I don't think he died penniless.
No, but his other albums were not.
Right, because they both. Okay, I'm not going to parse this out. I think they were great together. I'm just willing to say that, and I don't know that Jim Steinman is necessarily the better of the two. I think they were a great team.
They were.
That's.
I will not argue that they were a great team.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna.
Jim Steinman did other things, and kind of where I was going with that is when a song comes on, it's a Jim Steinman song.
Yeah, of course you do.
It is the only Air Supply song that's remotely listenable. Mm-hmm. Right? Is Jim's because Jim Steinman wrote. Celine Dion singing. It's still Celine Dion singing, but it's a Jim Steinman song.
No, he's very, very distinctive way of writing.
And there's other kind of power ballads that out there that I think are influenced by Jim Steinman as well.
Can you pull one right now? I just feel like he's so unique.
So Edge of Glory.
Okay.
Lady Gaga.
Well,
I don't think she was going there. I think she was trying to be kind of Springsteen-esque and ended up smacking into Jim Steinman instead of.
Well, it's possible. I mean, Lady Gaga's very theatrical as well.
Correct.
And I believe, so anytime you have this sort of dramatic theatrical presentation, you're getting there. But and I'm sorry, I'm not completely familiar with the lyrics of Edge of Glory. So the presentation of the music would be more like Meatloaf. When you say, and then Springsteen's also been connected to Meatloaf as well. So if you want to say that Springsteenian, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't. So are you? And this is. I'm not even going to argue this because I don't know it well enough. But do you think the lyrics to Edge of Glory could have been written by Jim Steinman, or do you think it's just that the performance is more of a Meatloaf style
So,
performance.
I think the lyrics, the whole song, the kind of power ballad thing, is very Jim Steinman-esque. That
Yeah,
you know,
you're. So I think you're. I kind of think you're confusing the production of the song to be, and I may be wrong, but the reason why Meatloaf say sounds a bit like Springsteen is first of all they have stole a couple of his musicians, Max Weinberg
Right.
and Roy Bitton perform on Bat of the Hell, and those are part of the E Street Band. But the production is the Wall of Sound, the Phil Spector Wall of Sound. Production values, and that's really to me where Bat of the Hell sounds like Springsteen-ish, and where the Lady Gaga also sounds that way. Is they contain this wall of sound production value that you might trace more accurately back to Phil Spector. I'm not sure if Jim Steinman, and I don't know this, but how much influence he had on the production. Todd Rundgren produced the album.
yeah.
And I think Todd Rundgren, and I think there was a lot of probably input by Jim Steinman and by Meatloaf. I think there was probably some cooperation there.
Sure.
But Todd Rundgren would be the person who's most responsible for the sound of the album, again, with influence by Phil Spector. So that's my question. Like Jim Steinman wrote the words. He didn't, and he wrote the music,
yeah.
but he didn't. It kind of goes back to, hey, I have this song, I wrote it on piano. What are we going to turn this into now? And what is this going to sound like in the end? And all these people have influence. And Todd Rundgren has probably as much influence or more than either of them on the final product.
Sure. So Springsteen's come up a few times, and there's no mystery that, or no secret that Jim Steinman was really influenced by Springsteen. Really liked Springsteen. Was amazed by seeing a live performance of Springsteen in '75.
Okay.
Now some of these songs predate that, were written before that.
Right.
But his style and his passion, his fury was very much influenced Jim Steinman and the music he created. And then, add to it, like you said, that Max Weinberg played.
Right. You
on it.
have the actual sound of the E Street Band on the album.
Correct.
You have the drums and the keyboard.
But by the way, Max Weinberg also played on Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you listen
it goes back-
listen to that drum stuff again on
And
there, and you
recognize
can really see that's
Yeah, and it goes back to even to the studio musician stuff we talk about. Is you get a crew of guys that you like, and you're putting an album together, and a lot if you tend to hire the same guys if they're
Yeah.
available and they do a good job.
But Meatloaf really didn't like the comparison to Springsteen.
Okay.
And there was sort of a Springsteen was you can't downplay how huge Springsteen was as an artist at this time.
Right.
Right. He was the top of it, and he hadn't produced he hadn't released an album in a while. And this was a kind of something similar to Springsteen in feel.
Springsteen-esque.
And so there's a theory or an argument there that this became so successful originally because it kind of rode the coattail of that Springsteen sound.
Yeah, I can tell you from me personally that's not true, but only from my own experience.
Well, and we came to this much later as well. I mean, we weren't experiencing this in '77.
Right.
You
Yes.
know? I know I was like a junior or senior in high school when I became, I
Got into
wore
Meatloaf a little bit.
wore this album out.
Right.
Both sides, by the way. Both
Oh,
sides.
good.
Yeah,
That's a
both sides. It was a flip over one.
Wow.
Yeah. But I'd love.
I think that should be one of our rankings. It should be
Is
in there
it-
somewhere.
is it-
Good enough to listen to side 2.
Yeah. So, what else do you want to we talked a lot about Meatloaf and Jim Steinman
Yeah.
already. Let's dive into a little bit about the album itself, or the songs on the album
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, and you touched on, the fact that Steinman was writing musicals, and some of these songs actually derived from a Neverland, which was his. He was writing a modern, I think, Goth Peter Pan musical. I don't know if it was Goth or not, quite honestly,
Yeah.
but
Goth-
he was.
We've established Goth didn't exist back then.
No, Goth existed in
Spellbound
1200 A.D.
Spellbound was 1981.
and
Go on.
Bauhaus was 1979, therefore the first.
This was 77.
Okay. And there was no goth before that. Goth did not exist as a concept. God, you got me off. So some of these songs are actually intended to be in a musical, and then were repurposed into this album. You've got 7 tunes. You got "Bad Out of Hell," which was as a single. By the way, you had like 3 songs that were over 8 minutes long,
Sure.
and they were they did shorten them somewhat for radio, but not entirely. And again, one of the reasons why I think this is a really unique album is it's almost anti-commercialism in that regard. That they're, recording songs that they had no. Clive Davis, I think, was one of the was involved in making this album, and he didn't want to make the album because there were no radio songs on it.
Right.
They weren't. He asked Steinman if he knew how to write music. Because it's so unique, and he's writing theatrical music in a pop vein, really. There was no normal song structures to this. It was ridiculous.
The birth of the power ballad. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
So to the point of where I made when I first started talking about this is I said each of these songs are like a mini musical.
Yeah.
And it really was, and even Meatloaf, when Steinman died, Meatloaf was interviewed, and he said at that time, my job was to make the songs focused the same way you'd get a character focus.
Yes.
Every song was a character.
Yeah.
So Meatloaf himself was treating this like he was in a mini musical.
For sure.
I win that argument.
What?
I win this one. Go on. He's
I
agreeing
wasn't
with
arguing.
Me. Yeah.
You can't win if I wasn't disagreeing with
Winner.
you.
All right. Nice.
So Bad Out of Hell was a UK 15, and then when it was reissued, it was reissued after I Do Anything for Love came out, I believe, in 1993, and ranked higher. It got up to 8 in the charts.
So when you said Bad Out of Hell, you're talking about the album, not the song.
The song. No, I'm talking about the song. The
song,
song was
okay.
a single. And hit 15 and then hit 8 on its re-release.
It wasn't the first single released.
I don't know that. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Was a single that hit 39. And again, it kind of dropped silently. I don't think it made an impression when it initially was released, and then found its way to 39 after being re-released. For sure, that song's a power ballad. And then 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad was number 11. That was platinum. So that was the biggest hit in America on the album. And then Paradise by the Dashboard Light, which is genius, somehow made it to 39 as a single, even though it's 7. Like Bad Out of Hell and Paradise by the Dashboard Light are 8-minute songs. And both of them charted. So... yeah, that's the album. Yeah, For Crying Out Loud at the end, might be one of my favorite songs on the album, actually. I think it's, for the campiness of the album, which it either, is that a bug or a feature sort of a thing? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, if you love it, you love the campiness of the album.
Well, it's
If you
campy
don't-
Springsteen.
Yeah, and if you don't like it, it's because of the campiness of the album. But I think For Crying Out Loud, to me, was the the most sincere of songs. I don't think, to me, it didn't have that campiness or faux seriousness to it. I felt like it was a legit, really nice song.
So one of the singles, one of the two shorter songs, starts with some spoken words.
Right.
I want to say it's 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yes.
And all my life, I thought that was Meatloaf talking.
Yeah, it was Jim Steinman.
It was
right?
Jim Steinman.
Right.
Yeah.
On a hot summer night.
On a hot summer night, yeah.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, and the poem is on a hot summer night.
Yeah.
And that shorter song, was only 5 minutes long. So.
But I always thought that was Meatloaf.
Mm-hmm. No, it was a very dramatic reading.
Right.
So, an interesting poem. And I think that's the poem that convinced, a music executive to actually release the song, because they loved that part of it.
Yeah. It was good. It was good. How was do you have any information, I'm curious, of how it was received at the time?
The album?
The album.
Well, that's what I was, I don't know the album as a whole, but again, a couple of these songs weren't received particularly well and only charted on their re-releases. You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth did not chart at first, and then made it to 39 after its re-release. And like I said, it's almost a miracle that this album was made in the first place, because it was so unique, and that it made it to the radio is even more.
Well, Paradise would be the one.
And you can thank Van Morrison for that, by the way, Mister, because of his influence on FM music and album rock. So that's a big high five to Van Morrison.
Paradise, for all, I mean, if you remember, Paradise is a very long song to be a radio song.
Yeah.
But if you remember back in the day, there were like late night programs that played odd songs. In Chicago you had.
Are you thinking of like rock show? Was it Don Kirshner's rock show?
Well, I was
perhaps?
thinking of like Wolfman Jack.
Okay.
Would play like novelty songs.
Okay. Dr. Demento?
Yeah, Dr. Demento. Yeah, there you go.
Is that what you're thinking?
And they would
both national.
And so these type of longer, odder songs would show up there more than on like the top 40 stations.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't touch a top 40 station wouldn't touch this
and
song,
that's kind of the late night programming is where I ran into Paradise for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I adore Paradise. I danced to it with my wife at our wedding.
You did.
So
I was there.
You were there, and
Yes.
I made you play the Phil Rizzuto
I
part.
did.
Yeah.
I hadn't rehearsed it fully.
You had not. No, but it was fine.
Did my best.
So Phil Rizzuto is
It's a very complicated part.
Yeah,
People think it's easy, but it's not. There's a lot of depth that one needs to bring to that part, and a lot of words.
There is a lot of words.
Yeah.
But Phil Rizzuto is a Hall of Fame announcer, play-by-play guy for the Yankees.
Right.
Hall of Famer.
Yes.
And
they got him to do it. I think the part might have even, like when they wrote it, I think Phil Rizzuto's going to read this on this album.
He claimed that he didn't know there was double-entendres, to use your words. Sexual innuendo.
Oh, probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he probably
claimed
wouldn't have.
that.
He probably wouldn't have done it if had he known, because he was like a legitimate announcer with a career.
But so does this mean he's in 2 Hall of Fames?
So he literally didn't realize that first base, second base, third base.
I'm sure he totally did, but had to do it for.
He'd rather admit to being stupid than.
Right. So is Phil Rizzuto in 2 Hall of Fames now? Is he in both the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with this and in
the Baseball Hall of Fame? Well, if this song has been, I don't know if this song has been enshrined or this album has been enshrined, but
I don't
if
know how it
so,
is.
the answer is yes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. So let's start bringing this one home.
Okay.
Perfect album or what? Do we,
I never know if I'm allowed to say this now or at the end of the show. I'm not allowed.
You're not allowed to rank them.
Okay. So here Landmark is the question.
Landmark album.
Okay,
yeah.
perfect album, landmark album. For me, not a perfect album. First of all, all revved up and No Place to Go. I'm not the biggest. Like that's the weakest one on the album for me. Heaven Can Wait is just fine. And again, this is like an album. So do I skip over it? Probably not. But also, I don't. If I were to skip a song, it would be All Revved Up and No Place to Go. I find that to be average. But the other songs are great. And then...
So how is that not perfect?
Because All Revved Up and No Place to Go.
I know you well enough to know you wouldn't get up off the couch to skip this.
Right, but if
song.
I was driving in my car and it came up, I would only have to like flick the thing on my steering wheel. So what is, are we
have to move your
just
thumb.
just like you had to, get up to flip the album, what is the threshold here of effort required to, make these songs skippable or not? Because if I had to get up off the couch, no, I'm not doing it. I'm definitely not like lifting the needle and skipping a song. That's never happened in my life. But when it was easier to skip a song, I would.
Get up and go make a sandwich.
Yeah, maybe. Come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely think it's a perfect song.
Yeah, that's
album.
fair. I mean, I can see it. And then I really gave it a lot of thought on the landmark question. Because, again, I find, we make these shows every week, and you throw out whatever the album's going to be, or I throw out the album's going to be. And so then I kind of have a week to ponder this, because prior to this, I don't know that I've ever thought about whether this was a landmark album or not.
Fair.
So then that question's posed to me. And my first reaction was no. My first reaction is that I personally love this album. I think it's a great album. But I don't know if it had, again, the gravitas or the weight or the significance to actually be a landmark. Is it bigger than itself is what it comes down to. And then I, in the process of researching this album, found out it spent 520 weeks on the UK chart. It is one of the most popular albums of all time. Only one of 10 albums to sell 40 million copies or more. And it's
pretty landmarky.
So, well, now it's just
so it's
sort
number
of just,
4, right?
I have it at I think 9. I have it between Rumors and
but
Saturday
you
Night
said
Fever.
it was stayed on the UK charts.
Oh, for 520
longest.
weeks. Yeah, it's the all-time selling album in Australia.
Do you know the albums that were in front of it?
I don't. I mean, I would. Dark Side of the Moon for sure is probably gonna be there.
Yeah, and Rumors.
In Rumors is number 8 all time, or not in weeks on the chart, but in copies sold. Yeah.
And then the third one was Morning Glory by Oasis.
Okay.
So that's
No, you're in rare company.
rarefied area.
Yeah, for sure you are.
Yeah.
So then that played into it, and then it just sort of justified, my feelings. It's like, well, I think it's a landmark album, but then I found out 40 million people think it's a landmark. But by itself, I would say, just because an album sold X amount of copies doesn't make it a landmark. There's been a lot of high-selling albums that we probably wouldn't call landmark albums. But the last piece of the puzzle for me is, what is the artistic value of this album? And again, the campiness of it at first kind of put me off. Like, how can I take an album seriously that doesn't take itself seriously? But I thought about it some more. And I've come to the conclusion for myself that this album is absolutely like high art. This is, even if you think about how Jim Steinman clearly like values his songs, and even though they're campy and funny, like
Yeah.
it takes a lot of work to be campy and funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, then
And-
add the theatrics
and
to
add
it
the theatrics
to
to
sell
it. Yeah.
to sell the campiness.
To sell
of
the
it.
campiness and sell the funniness. And I really believe these two guys were born to make this album. It's a landmark album.
Yeah, I can't. It in my world, it's a beloved album. You know, I think I had to buy another copy. I think it wore out this album.
Like literally
Wore it out.
Yeah.
It was loved everything about this. Loved all the double entendres, if you were. Loved
Thank you for
the loved the theatrics of it.
Yeah.
I guess when I got into it, I didn't really get the Springsteen ties. at all.
I get it from the production value that we talked
Yeah.
about, but it didn't strike me as it didn't strike me at the time either.
So just a tremendous album. To me, it's a perfect album, and leaving it as a perfect album, is good enough for me. All right. Well, that was great to talk about.
It's a fun album.
I believe we have a sponsor.
Here's a funny story.
All right. Sponsor, funny story.
I have to go get the read.
All right. We'll be right back.
Okay. And we saw him over the summer on his Damn Right final tour, right? Okay, and then he retired, but he still did his shows at his own club, which I was able to agree. Illinois shows throughout the state, and I would just, if you even like blues, the teeny enough. But if you have.
Are you someone who needs help with their Instagram or TikTok? Well, you're in luck. LR Media is here to help. Email me at laurarose2003@aol.com to get started. Let's make your social media shine.
Two Fat Guys in an Album is sponsored by Deeper Connections Counseling, helping people connect to themselves, the people they love, and the world around them through individual and couples therapy for Illinois residents, both in person and online. More information at dcctherapy.com.
So I am a big fan of mental health these days. I believe strongly in how the weight of things that are going on in both society and globally and in the U.S. can really affect your mental health, and that can bleed into causing problems in relationships. So don't be shy. Reach out to people. Have conversations. Nobody should suffer alone, and for sure nobody should then bring those problems into a relationship to ruin marriages or friendships. And these are tremendous people to work with and to talk to. We all have our challenges in life, and it's good to know there's people out there to talk and help you through problems and situations. And I have found, and I from personal experience and from friends, that when you can have conversations, not only can you solve a problem, but you can actually make your relationship stronger. And I think it's good to have people out there like this. I appreciate what they do.
Well said.
So we flipped it over to side 2. This is a segment we call What's Going On? What's going on? Yeah, all right. Love it. So I have a couple of things.
As do I.
Awesome. Since I'm talking, I'll start. So we talked about my favorite LoFi band, Guided by Voices.
Yes.
And their full album was just released recently. I talked about a couple of shows ago when we started the whole LoFi, debacle.
Right. I'm sure they're not still lo-fi, but go on. I don't want to stretch this out.
Right. They had just released a song off of this album that I thought was worth listening to. The whole album is now out, called Universe Room.
Okay.
Universe Room. and I think it's well worth the listen to. If you like a good lo-fi bands, Guided by Voices, Universe Room, gets a thumbs up from me.
Especially lo-fi bands who have graduated to hi-fi. So we got to see Buddy's guy's name has come up a couple times on this show.
Sure.
And we saw him over the summer on his Damn Right final tour. Right? Yeah. Okay.
88-year-old.
And then he
guy.
retired.
Yeah.
But he still did his shows at his own club, which I was able to go see recently. Funny story. There is the Damn Right Encore tour about to embark. And I will just say, if you have not seen Buddy Guy live, you absolutely must. He's a living legend. Number 27 rock and roll, Rolling Stone ranked guitarist, and he's going to be performing in June in the Midwest and out east. He's doing 3 Illinois shows throughout the state, and I would just, if you even like blues at the teeniest, tiniest bit, you have to go see this. This would be a bucket list. Bucket list for me to see him already. I've been fortunate enough.
Yeah.
But if you have not seen Buddy Guy live, I cannot recommend it enough.
So he does the residency is what you
He
saw.
does the residency in January at his club in downtown Chicago.
Which he's been doing for like 30 years.
A really long time.
Yeah.
Many years. And I've
Amazing.
never got to see it actually until this past January.
Very cool. Very cool. I will also talk about another piece of new music I kind of found. Struggling a little bit with the pronunciation, but I'm going to go. So this is a British funk band called Cymande. I'm going to go with that.
You want to spell it?
Cymande. Cymande. And they have a new album,
Renaissance, which I believe is a play on words of Renaissance.
Renaissance.
Yeah.
What is amazing about this is
they like to make up words too. Apparently.
What's amazing about this is a 1970s funk band,
right.
Funk band, who put out an album like 50 years later.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely amazing. I mean, good old funk. It sounds like I was listening to it in the car, and I asked my loving wife what she thought about it, and she's like, "It's like I'm watching an episode of Beretta."
Sure. Well, you recommended it to me, and I listened to it, and the first thought I had was, "Are those real instruments?" Because you don't hear it anymore, and they were like real horn players, real string players.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the first song off the album I like a lot, and really good band.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is just tremendous. It's a total like throwback album. Amazingly, it's a lot of the original band.
That's what I was going to ask you: is how many of the originals were still
at least 5 of the 7 or whatever.
Okay. And I'm sure they're filled it out with a lot of studio musicians as well.
I think the only ones not being on it are not on it because they're dead. Right. But it's just it's tremendous. If you like, I don't know, if you like funk or you just want a good jam or you're in the mood to dance, man, look up. And again, I don't know how they actually pronounce it, but I'm going with Cymande.
They should pronounce it at the beginning. Hey, this is maybe they find a live recording where they announce the band. Maybe that would be helpful.
So I want to talk about a couple of shows coming up. But
Okay.
Do you have any other?
Well, I actually got to go to a show recently. It was one of these again last minute things that just kind of happened. I went to see Goose in Milwaukee the other night, and Goose. Are you familiar with Goose?
Oh yeah.
I wasn't. I did it. It fell in my lap.
And
I
would
just
love
went.
to.
Yeah, I would. Next time they're in town, we'll go check them out.
Yeah. They were playing 3 nights up there, I think.
Yeah, and their song you might know from them is Hunger Sight. That's their most recent hit. But they're a jam band. They're sort of an indie alt alternative jam band. I'm sure you come up with a much more descriptive and useless term. But they play, but Hunger Sight is like a 4-minute radio song that's 20 minutes long when you see them live.
Yeah,
they have
definitely a
the
jam band.
absolute best light show I believe I've ever seen in my life.
Oh,
it was
fantastic.
it was all, kind of synced to the music. It has that sort of psychedelicness to it. Just fantastic musicians, great show. Here's the thing. Does Wisconsin allow smoking indoors is what I would like to know. Because this is the most smoke I have ever seen in my entire life. By the way, I should throw in...
Where was it?
The Miller High Life Theater, which is a gorgeous theater, by the way.
In the casino? Or
No. Miller High Life Theater downtown. It's blocks from Fiserv Forum. It's
I think that's where like the Milwaukee Admirals play or something. Or
no. This is a theater, not an arena. Yeah, it's across the
Chauncey
street.
says it's across the street.
Right.
From there. All right. So I got it.
Anyways, it's about a 5,000 seat theater.
Oh.
So really awesome theater. But
what
back to
kind of smoke?
The kind.
Tobacco-y or happy smoke?
There was not. It didn't appear to be a lot of tobacco. So
gotcha.
Curiously, Meatloaf. I got to see Meatloaf at the House of Blues.
Yeah, I was with
probably.
you.
And I think it was like in 1993. It was when the second album came out. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a smoke-free show. I remember it clearly because maybe he had asthma or something like that. And so that was probably the first show I'd ever attended that was smoke-free because the ordinances hadn't been put in place yet. And I thought it was so weird. And over the past 30 years or so, I've been enjoying smoke-free shows quite a bit. This was uncomfortably smoky. Like, I had to go out in the hallway to get air. It was the smoke. I thought the place was going to burn down. I've got two words.
A lot of people having fun.
I got 2 words for Goose fans in Milwaukee. Gum ease. It was ridiculous, but it was a fantastic show.
It's good.
And they do have a 2025 album. They've got an April release, and I think they dropped one of their songs from that album.
Yeah. Would have liked to go?
No, I know. I would have invited you had I had the option.
Couple of shows that I see coming up, and I don't know if you'd be up for this one, so I might have to take Chauncey, but... on March 10th, Max Sabbath is coming to the WC Social Club in West Chicago.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever looked this up?
Do you know their genre, by the way?
They're a cover band.
They are the leaders and probably the innovators in drive-through metal.
No, drive-through.
Drive-through metal. That is their genre. Self-described, I believe.
Well, yeah.
So I could be, for sure I could go do it. Do you want to explain to people, or are you just going to make them go look it up?
No, well, I want to know if you looked it up, or you.
Well, I was familiar with them actually prior to you saying this.
So it's a Black Sabbath cover band.
Not really. It was more of a parody band.
Parody band, yeah, all right.
So they've managed to stretch the parody rules out as far as possible. How they've managed
I think the
to
copyright once.
Yeah, I'd be like, well, that's what the parody laws are.
Yeah.
Like, if it's parody, then you're clear. And they've managed apparently to not be sued by 2 mega organizations, Black Sabbath or McDonald's.
McDonald's.
Yeah, they dress up in
McDonald's.
bizarre McDonald's characters and do Black Sabbath parody songs related to McDonald's and fast food.
My God, I got it.
So if I'm available, I will go to it.
Yeah.
I would have to check the calendar though.
Yeah. Well, March 10th, they're playing here. I guess if you get an opportunity to go see Max Sabbath, and you're up for it, and you like good parody band apparently.
Yeah.
All right, the next one I kind of like to bring up is the Sons of Cream are touring.
Okay.
That is the sons of Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker from Cream.
Right.
Are touring together, I guess. playing the music of Cream? I'm
Okay, I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah.
This is your thing, and I suddenly just got your parenthetical remark that probably doesn't go on the air.
yeah.
But I can tell you that I've actually seen Kofi Baker perform a couple times.
Yeah.
He performs in the area with a band called Infunktious. I don't know if he's living in Chicago or I think this is a Chicago-based band. I
Yeah.
think he comes into town fairly regularly. And Infunktious is a terrific sort of elevated cover band. They do their own versions of songs, and they're great live. They are amazing live. And I've seen Kofi Baker as part of that band a couple times. So he's no Neil Peart, but he's a solid drummer and
100%.
surrounded by, in this particular band, really terrific musicians. So I can for sure recommend Kofi Baker with Infunktious if they come around to your town.
All right. Couple more. Florist. I've talked about Florist before. I'd like their music. They're playing the Cobra Lounge in Chicago. I don't even know where the Cobra Lounge is.
There was a really popular place back in the day. I think Dennis Rodman hung out at the Cobra. I swear to you.
You know, now that you say that.
Yeah.
So if you're available March 6th, maybe we'll sneak down for that. Punch Brothers announced the spring tour.
Okay.
We're going to get to Punch
be
Brother adjacent here.
Yeah, I was going to say you might be jumping the gun on that one.
Yeah, we'll see. And the other one I think is really interesting is Mumford & Sons announced like a small venue tour.
Okay.
And so in Chicago here, they're coming to the Chicago Theater on March 22nd, but there's a number of other locations you can go see them around the country.
Okay.
But the pricing is ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Mumford & Sons. I would go see them, but I am not paying. The cheapest seat in the Chicago Theater that you can buy for this show from, the normal ticket process is $750.
Yeah, that's a no.
And they go up to thousands of dollars to be, closer up.
Yeah, and I'm more of a Mumford & Sons when they were playing the banjo. I'm not huge Mumford & Sons. I guess I like everything they do, but I preferred their original style more than their more modern style. So I will not be paying $750 to see them. I don't actually think of Chicago Theater as a small venue, but clearly not an arena.
Well, it's not
the United Center.
Yeah, no. But it's just, I would be fascinated to see if this thing sells out or what they go for.
Well, it's $750 in a person. Maybe if you're half full, it's all you need.
But $750, you're in the back row in the corner.
That's
if you want to be center middle, you're well over $1,000.
I would need the original Beatles to be there for that kind of money, I think.
I would agree. All right, I think that wraps up the What's Going On segment. We will have to switch LPs now and move on to side 3.
This episode of Two Fat Guys in an Album is brought to you by Smidge Films. If you're looking to bring your ideas to life with some cool cinematic work, Smidge Films has you covered. From brand stories to promos, we'll help you tell your story in a way that really sticks. Check us out and see what we can do for you.
Welcome back to Two Fat Guys in an Album. This is side 3, which we are currently calling Beyond Classic Rock. It has had a few name changes already in the show, but we are going with, for the moment, Beyond Classic Rock.
It will fit in just fine with this selection.
All right. So let's keep it. And this selection is the album Nickel Creek by Nickel Creek from 2000.
Yes, the eponymous album.
Right. So you want to talk a little bit
Well,
about
sure.
the
I mean, this is
musicians and the album itself?
Yeah, well, Nickel Creek is a, I don't know, do you have a genre for this?
I
Because
do.
they're Americana, they're rootsy, but...
So in kind of the
Okay, go ahead. Hit me with your genus,
so it's rock,
phylum.
folk, bluegrass, and this is progressive bluegrass.
Okay, I'll accept that.
All right.
Made up of 3 terrific... made up of 3 excellent musicians: Sarah Watkins,
Yeah.
Sean Watkins, and Chris Thiley, who I looked up, by the way, how to pronounce that name because there's
I was going to
multiple.
go Thiley.
Thiley, yeah. And we saw them live.
Yeah.
Actually, when they were, I'm pretty sure they were touring on this album. It was their first album. It's their first album, the one that came first.
Right.
And they were
Right.
performing with Bela Fleck, who you had not seen yet, and I don't believe I had seen yet, but I knew of. And I just remembered telling you we were going to go see a concert, and I wasn't going to tell you anything about it because if I told you it involved a banjo player, you probably would have run away. At the time,
Maybe,
the
yeah,
old you,
yeah,
the old you.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
But
And
we
so-
knew of Nickel Creek, though.
Well, yes, he knew of Nickel Creek. Did I know of Nickel Creek?
No, I think we knew of Nickel
No.
Creek.
Not me. No, I don't believe we did. They were the opening act.
They were.
And I had not, so at that time, we were at a concert where I had not ever seen either of the acts, Nickel Creek or Bela Fleck, and didn't really entirely know what to expect. And Nickel Creek came out, and by the way, at the time of this album, and pretty close to when we saw them, Sarah Watkins was 19. Her brother Sean was the eldest at 23, and Chris Thiley also only 19. At the time of this recording,
Yeah.
and when Nickel Creek came out, they blew me away. I don't know how you felt about it. They blew me away, and it was to the point of, does Bela Fleck know what they've done?
Yeah.
And then Bela Fleck came out, and
Yeah.
you do not steal a show from Bela Fleck. It cannot be done.
At some point we have to do like a Bela Fleck deep dive because we're both huge fans.
Yeah,
But I agree. I was super impressed with Nickel Creek when we first saw him.
yeah. Chris. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I also have to say that I also agree that as much as we were impressed and just amazed by them, Bela Fleck just then came out and was Bela Fleck.
Showed him
It
who's
was-
boss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's not going to be intimidated.
Put him
by
over his knee.
a bunch of little kids. Yeah.
But but Chris Thiley came out and actually played some songs with Bela Fleck on mandolin and more than held his own. Chris Thiley's a virtuoso mandolin player in his own right.
So he played mandolin.
Yes.
Then we had guitar player and
Yeah, Sean Watkins plays guitar,
Fiddle?
Sarah Watkins fiddle. And they're all vocalists. Fiddle's, just a colloquial term
Yeah.
for violin.
I was trying to poke the hornet's nest, but it seemed fiddly.
No, it's if you're in this genre, then fiddle's an appropriate term.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not going to upset me with that one. So Nickel Creek, the band, it has won Grammys and has had multiple Grammy and CMA nominations. Their follow-up album, This Side, has a Grammy win. You're going to like this. I've come across a genre for them called neo-modern acoustic chamber pop. And I know you tried to sneak the chamber thing beyond me last time, but neo
acoustic.
modern acoustic. I'm not sure how you can be neo-modern, quite honestly. But I thought you'd like it because of you had mentioned chamber or something last
Acoustic
time.
chamber
pop, which I do.
Well, I said chamber pop, and you flipped
Because I
out.
didn't think it applied to that band, but I do think it actually applies to Nickel Creek because they are much more intimate and intricate in their playing, and I do think it kind of works, although neo-modern is word salad. By the way, I know you have so Chris Thiley currently in the Punch Brothers. He's
right.
kind of is a main, He's actually won a MacArthur grant. I don't know if you know that.
No.
In 2012. I mean, the guy's he's a genius.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a fantastic album. Even if you're not sure you like this sort of progressive bluegrassy thing, I think you would enjoy this album. They have a new album called Celebrants out. I've only listened to one song off of it, but it's super interesting, and I'll probably be diving into it more. I'm not sure what Chris Thiley's touring schedule is because he's also with Bela Fleck now on the road. So not only did he sort of get, launched by Bela Fleck, I think, but currently touring with him, and then perhaps after that tour ends, the Punch Brothers hit the road.
Yeah.
This album, the Nickel Creek album, charted 125 on Billboard and a country number 13, produced by Alison Krauss, and it went platinum. For a progressive bluegrass album to go platinum is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's unheard of. All the members sing. The vocals are gorgeous. The musical, the instrumental parts of it are often virtuosic. There's the album itself features a variety of songs. They have 5 instrumentals that are sort of folksy, bluegrassy, progressive bluegrass type of instrumentals, and intermingled are some just really sweet, awesome songs that would fit right into your beer garden or yacht.
Right. So the song that I really liked at the time off of this album was The Lighthouse Tale, which is a story, kind of a love story told from the perspective of the lighthouse.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it is.
It's brilliant.
It is. So lyrically, it's brilliant. And then, the other songs that I like, if somebody wants a sample, is like Out of the Woods, Sweet Afton, and the Fox. I think the Fox is more of a
traditional song.
Yes. Yeah. All done very well. I was excited when you suggested we do this album as this segment, because I have very fond memories of this whole album. The time, and it probably ushered in a whole kind of, between this album and I think seeing Bela Fleck, it kind of...
No, I think that concert that we attended redirected your musical taste.
It did, totally.
Yeah, it was...
but now that I re-listened to this, musically it sounds like they were 19 years old.
Do you think so? I think it's magic. I
don't think it didn't hold up for me the same way it did.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I listened to it again to prepare, and I just love this album. I continue to love this album. I especially like the vocal tracks. I think The Lighthouse Tale is a tremendous song.
It was cute, but I don't know. It seemed to have kind of worn out its welcome a little bit for me. And I'm like super impressed with Chris Thile. Is that how we're saying it?
Right.
And his work with the Punch Brothers, which I think is far more polished and kind of deeper musically.
Well, you're looking at, first of all, okay. I'm not sure it's fair to compare them to the Punch Brothers, which is a whole nother thing. Like you know what I mean? You're going from simple to one of the most, like, this was progressive in the year 2000.
Sure.
Exceptionally progressive. Okay?
Yeah.
And Punch Brothers are exceptionally progressive now. And so, the Punch Brothers has evolved this, taken this to an entirely different level. So it's a little unfair. It'd be like, again, we were talking about Bob Dylan lyrics a while ago. It would have been really unfair to me to say compare Bob Dylan even to the Mountain Goats, because it's 30 years later or 40 years later, and they have the benefit of what came before them. But for me, this album still hits. Lighthouse Tale, When You Come Back Down. The hand song, they all...
a hand song was almost unlistenable.
I'm shocked by that. I can't...
And her voice is amazing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. And but it was just like, it's an eye roller to me at this point.
Yeah, no, I find, for me, honestly, maybe because I'm more pure-hearted and not evil,
Wow.
these songs literally hit just as hard as the first time I saw them. So fair enough. I'm not going to quibble about personal tastes, but for me, love this album, and I still love hearing the songs from it.
Yeah, and maybe it's because I have his work with Punch Brothers, and I'm such a big fan Punch Brothers
Right.
that when he went back to this, it would seem
Well, it's
much more simplistic and not nearly as interesting.
it's definitely simpler, but yet progressive for its time, and a little bit of. But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, Punch Brothers is a whole nother thing.
I do say everybody should, give it a listen. There's
Yeah.
some songs on there you might enjoy. I've moved
Yeah,
on.
and I will say, I'm just gonna say it. This is you're getting a 2-for-1 today. This is a landmark album. This is a landmark album in the Americana Roots category. Again, a platinum seller, produced by Alison Krauss. At the time, you're talking about the progression to the Punch Brothers, for example. You're talking about Bela Fleck's first band, who's I can't pull the name right now, like the New Country Bluegrass or something like that, which sort of launched the newgrass movement. And then really you get to Bela Fleck again with the Fleck tones, and then Nickel Creek is the next band in that lineage, I think, leading up to your Punch Brothers. So in all sincerity, I think historically this is a landmark album in that genre.
All right, well, there you have it. So I think we're going to have to leave this one there and flip one last time to side 4 and start really wrapping things up. So today's album was Meatloaf, Bad Outta Hell. This is now our 7th album, and where do you rank Bad Outta Hell on the list of albums we've done at this point?
Yeah, I mean, again, I always have to say it's my ranking. It's not even the show's ranking. I'm not sure when do we get to hear the Anaconda of Genres rankings. I feel like because you have opinions, and I would like to blast your opinions once in a while.
Maybe for the 10th show we'll do
a recap.
We'll do the 10.
All right, that's not a bad idea. Yeah. So I have it right now between Moving Pictures and Brothers in Arms. I have Moving Picture out of the 7 albums that we've reviewed. Moondance remains the top spot, and quite honestly, unchallenged, undefeated, unchallenged, number 1. And Moving Pictures, I have at 4, and Brothers in Arms, I have at 6. I'm putting Bad Outta Hell in between Moving Pictures and Brothers in Arms.
Not a bad place to fall on a list. Those are, monumental albums.
Yeah, it's
and,
really
and
hard. It's
hard.
actually really hard to do.
Right?
Yeah, I'm tiring of trying to put this in order, because I'm going to look back at it in like a year and go, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But as we go week
most
to
of
week,
us already are.
Oh,
So
goodness.
Go ahead. With that, let's get our thank yous out of the way. We'd like to thank our producer, Chauncey, here from Smidge Films, our PR team from LR Media, and all of our sponsors, Deep Connections Counseling, Diane Blackburn from Baird & Warner, Smidge Films, LR Media. You can find us, on all of our social media platforms, all the podcast platforms. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Podbean, we're on iHeart, and of course we're always on YouTube. So please subscribe, leave a comment. All those things help us be found by others, and we'd like to push this out to a much wider audience, and we deeply appreciate it. So next week we are going to do Sting's masterpiece, Dream of the Blue Turtle. And we also might get a visit from one of my favorite bands, Dawes. So
excellent.
In a later segment.
Can't wait to jump into that.
Yeah. So I'm Fat Guy 1.
Fat Guy 2.
And we'll see you next week.
There's been some kerfuffles. I don't understand.
This is
some of the nonsense coming out of your mouth
the
today.
favorite version of him when we get into these discussions. I mean, this could be a bar or a podcast. I love when he's.
My only
You could rattle
My
him.
only
You could
regret-
rattle him right off the bar.
my only regret is I don't get to swear on this because
You can do whatever you want. I'm not swearing.
just keeping it clean.